a partnership of governance, or we call it Kemitraan in Indonesia, most well known, and Peat Restoration, our agency of BRG, to host this session to discuss collaborative climate action through private-people partnership that will leverage larger resources and support in realizing sustainable development that will favor for both environmental sustainability and as well as economic growth. So again, I need to stress here, in order to achieve Indonesian NDC or Indonesia's NDC, this is not only the work of the government only, but also we need to engage multi-stakeholders such as private sectors, communities, and scientific organization and other relevant stakeholders to implement that. So our pavilion's theme is climate action for all. So it's quite relevant. Time, scale, and impact. So it's really high relevant, as I mentioned earlier in my talk. I believe this theme is very relevant to operationalize sustainable peatland management in Indonesia with visible and measurable time frame, scale, and impacts. Ladies and gentlemen, a study from World Bank showed that ambitious global restoration goal would require up to 36 up to 49 billion US dollar investment each year. That's really huge investment. So this figure shows that financing climate change is crucial and imperative to ensure that the development intervention would not leave adverse impact both to the environment and local communities. Mobilizing additional finance and utilizing current investment to a broader scale would help protect the livelihood of forest dependent communities, allow sustainable production of commodities to fulfill competing land use demands, and build resilience at the landscape level by preventing loss and damage worth over 16.1 billion US dollars. So that's why it's very important, to implement this kind of sustainable production of commodities in order to avoid that kind of big costs, potential costs. One of the government's priority program is the agrarian reform through the distribution of lands and the provision of access to social forestry scheme. By the end of this year, up to 3.5 million hectares of state forest have been devolved to be managed under social forestry. So this is one of the top priority of our president, to relocate, to provide access to the community, to get involved in managing our forest. Innovative financing instruments are needed to provide financial access that can help beneficiaries such as private concession companies, smallholder farmers, and forest-dependent communities in managing natural resources in sustainable manners while improving community livelihood. The government of Indonesia has established public-private financing mechanism through the establishment of Environmental Funds Agency, or we call it BPDLH. The Environmental Fund is designed to be managed through a simple yet robust mechanism with an international standard governance system in receiving, managing, and distributing funds from the public at large, business community, international agencies, foreign governments, local government, and central government. Ladies and gentlemen, we should take this opportunity in exploring the option to bring all stakeholders, to sit down at the same table to further respond to the needs for collaborative climate action. So I need to underline again, collaborative climate action. Public-private people partnership is expected to provide the room for resources sharing and efficient financing mechanism that will leverage larger financial access and market stream for sustainable natural resources management. So in conclude my remark, I hope you have a good exchange of idea for this session. It's my hope that this event will push forward the good initiative and best practices that we have made in ensuring and opening more room for improvement of public-private people partnership in addressing climate change. So I thank you for your good attention, and I end up my speech by saying wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Vice Minister. Now, to begin this session, I would like to invite the moderator of the session, Dr. Efran Shah, Senior Advisor to the Minister of Environment and Forestry, to invite all the speakers of our session today. To Mr. Efran Shah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think I've been invited so many times today. I'll be still okay with you. Maybe I have an excuse to get rest tomorrow. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for having me here on this agenda. And this one is to conclude the Pavilion agendas today. So we are talking about partnership. Just to follow up what Vice Minister mentioned, the keyword is partnership. But we pick up a special focus here is on Peatland. Okay? So 2 keywords, and I'm going to bring you, there will be a 7th speaker. If you wish, it's okay. Then we can extend, because this is the last session. We can go until 7, 8 p.m. if you wish. if you like to talk, but I don't think so. It's getting chilly outside. It's cold. So let's start how I describe this session. Okay, partnership, and then peat. Indonesia delegation, as well the Indonesian government overall, put a very special attention on peat this time. From the very first day, there are peat issues, and this morning also, peat issue came up again, and then here again we are going to talk about peat. And we have a colleague from Peat Restoration Agency with us who will tell us a few stories, I hope. And then we have several stakeholder partnership representatives, and I would like to invite them to come forward to join me here. Ibu Felia Salim, representing the Partnership for Government Reform, the Executive Board. Silakan Bu. Ibu Mirna Safitri, Peat Restoration Agency. Pak Sukamtono, farmer, Peat Farming Field School dari Riau. Silakan Pak. I would prefer the ladies split, if you don't mind. Balance. And then Pak Yusran Yusuf, the Secretary of Kuburaya Regency, West Kalimantan, and Pak Sihol Aritonang, President Director of PT Riau Andalan Pulp and Paper. And the 7th intervention will be made by Pak Supiandi, representing Peat Society of Indonesia. So, I believe they will be dynamic. It's more difficult to glue, they said. You have to glue this. So we'll start by that order. Please, Pak. Pak Supiandi, please. So can we get closer, zooming the pit from the models, if possible, initiative, first initiative, if any, models, particular model, if it has been tried, and then can we talk about monitoring of pit as a very important factor because it relates directly to the vulnerability of forest fire, forest land and fire. And then, do we have enough policy or should we drum up more policy about this? So if we can cultivate a few opinions from this panel as well as the floor, I think we'll be rich after closing this session. Without further ado, Ibu Felia, can you take up the first issue? Come here. Please, Bu.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last session, so it's a difficult one because you're all ready and quite tired, but we hope to have a lively session. Let me give you a little bit of background of the session that, I wish I was kind of the middle speaker or the last speaker because my angle is really about finance.
I don't mind.
There is. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
We are very flexible.
All right. I have quite a few slides, but let me run it by you. It's, please. Oh, I do it myself, is it? Well, I'm not going to spend too much time on Kemitraan. We've been around for almost 20 years at the turn of the. I think I'm not having the right slide. Anyway, Kemitraan's. Can I double check, please? Apakah ini mana? Ini slide yang terakhir. Ini bukan slide terakhir. Apologies. This is not the slide. Do you want to give to the other?
Until you get prepared.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I brush.
Yeah.
I think that's good. You take it up.
Okay.
On the last or in the middle.
Yeah,
I'll let you know.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Apologies for that.
Don't worry. We are very flexible. We can accommodate that. Ibu Mirna duluan ya. Ibu Mirna. You want to be here? You have a slide.
Sudah belum?
Okay, good afternoon, Ibu Bapak, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mirna Safitri, Deputy of Peatland Restoration Agency, responsible for anything related to people and peatland. In this session, I would like to share our experience regarding how to develop partnership of stakeholders to support peatland restoration in Indonesia, particularly at the very grassroots level, at the village level. There are 3 points, very brief, I hope, that I would like to share with you. The first, probably some of you still do not familiar with the Peatland Restoration Agency of Indonesia, so this is very brief information about this agency, about the task, about the target. And then after that, because this session also want to address the issue of the SDGs achievement, so in the context of peatland ecosystem, how can our program can also contribute to the achievement of SDGs for this country? And then after that, I would like to share some experiences regarding the partnership effort to support the achievement of the SDGs. So, this morning we talk about Peatland. Some of you, I think, also attended the morning session. So this is just to repeat that in 2016, our President, Joko Widodo, decided to establish a new agency called Peatland Restoration Agency. Why? Because one of the issues that need to be addressed by this agency is the forest and land fire happened in 2015. The government identified about 2 million hectares of degraded peatland that need to be immediately restored. And we at BRD later on identified the number increased to 2.7 million hectares. This is actually a very ambitious agenda in the world, I think, because we only have 5 years to accomplish all of this task. So imagine that for more than 2 million hectares, degraded peatland need to be restored, and it's spread in 7 provinces in this country with different kind of problems, including the social problems. From this target, around 1.7 million hectares located in the concession areas, whether it is palm oil and forestry concession. And our task, together with other government agencies, is to supervise or to provide technical assistance for the companies in order to make them be able to implement the peatland restoration as mandated by several government regulations. For the remaining 1 million hectares, this is the area where located in protected forest, conservation forest, and also in other non-forest areas without any licenses. And here our role is to directly coordinate, particularly with the local government, to implement the peatland restoration. We also work closely with CSOs, private sectors, and also with the communities to implement several programs related to the peatland restoration. There are 3 approaches that we decided to do in implementing the peatland restoration. That's what we call as the 3 R's approaches. The first one is for rewetting of the dried peatland. The second one by replanting, particularly for the ex-burn areas. And then the third one is to work with the communities to implement the socio-economic empowerment. For all these approaches, we need to understand that it will be implemented in the areas that already occupied by the people. So in 2.7 million hectares of our target, we found that around 1,200 villages. So you can imagine that how many people live there, and they consist of different ethnic groups, different religions, different economic activities, etc. So this is the challenge actually to make the community participation happen to support the peatland restoration. And for this, we have a program that we call the Desa Peduli Gambut, or Peat Care Village Program. So basically, this is an integrated program of the socio-economic empowerment of the villages located in our targeted areas. And there are actually 10 activities. Some of the activities, basically those that already enacted by current policy and also program. And we understand that we do not need to introduce new activities, but our task is actually to accelerate that all these activities coming from different government agencies can work in the harmonious way in the village level. So these are 10 activities that implemented through the Peat Care Village program, starting from appointing a village facilitator, living for around 1 year in the village, and then to do participatory mapping, to do social mapping, to make the village own their own data, on their own map. We also work, as our discussion this morning, to connect the villages in order to establish what we call in Indonesia is the kawasan perdesaan, or the rural zone located in the peatland ecosystem. In this regard, we work closely with the Ministry of Village Affairs, and the rural zone can be understood as one of the landscape approach of developing socio-economic empowerment in the peatland ecosystem. We also work to strengthen the local institution from facilitating the village to have their own regulation, how to protect the peatland, where they need to protect the peatland, and then who can manage the peatland, etc. We also established local groups, farmers groups, women's groups, etc., and also implementing some activities related to the economic empowerment. So basically, there are some other activities that carried out in the Pit Care Village program. And if we look at, oops, why? Can you help me? Doesn't work. Next slide. I want to tell you about the link between this program to the SDGs. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 goals of the SDGs related to our work in the Pit Care Village program. From the no poverty, to quality of education, to gender equality, to responsible consumption and production, and also for peace and justice. So I will tell you after this some of activities that relate to this, to some of these goals. One is a zero burning farming that we have been promoting since 2017 in many villages we work, and the objective of this program is to provide solution for the local farmers to continue their traditional agriculture, but also in other side to obey the regulation that not allowing people to do burning practices. I'm Pak Sukanto from Riau, one of the village in Riau, can tell you his experience to develop this kind of activities. From the zero burning, basically we also introduce about the circular economy. We introduce the people how to make zero waste farming. We also strengthen the organization of the farmer in order to make them responsible to manage the land, and also to strengthen the cooperatives among their members to achieve their economic result of the farming. We know that we cannot continue talking about environmental issues without addressing the economic issues. That's very simple reason of many of us, including the farmers. So that's why economic empowerment is one of the key activities that we carried out. We identified several commodities in our areas, and you can here see from this slide that's those commodities spreading from fruits to coffee and a coconut, etc., including fishery. What we do is we understand that people need something quick to be achieved. So that's why it's really challenging for us And we identified then several activities, economic activities that can be used to provide the quick result for the people. One of the activities that we carried out is to develop the creative economy by putting women as the key players. I don't know, probably after this session, you will get a bag made from an endemic grass growing on Indonesian peatland that called purun. Since 2017, we work closely with the women's group to develop the purun bag that usually just use for plate, and they never have any added value before. And after that, we work with the designer, with the eco-fashion designer to make this product can also have another added value. And you can see here that this is the example how we work to improve the economic of the women's group in the Peatland. This is also the other example about the natural dye that called sasirangan in South Kalimantan. Again, this is only activities that involve women in the program. Not only with women, we also work with the youth, because we understand that creative economy also needs the involvement of the youth. So here you can see several products coming from the youth, from the young farmers that have been trained, and they can make this kind of the healthy snacks in the several home industries in our area. Work with other segment of the people, from the teachers to religious leaders, and also this morning you can see we also work with the police even. So why we need to work with these groups? Because peatland restoration is our common objective, is our common target. This cannot be accomplished only by the government, so that's why the ability to work with several stakeholders is mandatory for this reason. We work with NGOs. Kemitraan Partnership is one of our partners. We also have developed a cooperation with private sector, such as that coming from the energy sector. We also work with the university, etc., in order to make all of these resources, efforts, and also the willingness to make the change can be organized in the program of Desa Peduli Gambut. So that's basically the information that I can share. If I can say something before I close, that partnership need the ability to learn, the ability to speak the truth, and also the ability to do adaptation. Otherwise, we only put partnership in the very formalistic form that cannot be used to achieve our objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mirna. And with your nice word at the end, can we just listen to Pak Sukamtono, who will need interpretation? He is a farmer, and he belongs to the pit farming field school in Riau province. So he will tell us the story from the field. Interpretation, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Greetings to all of you.
Petani tidak lagi membakar, pertanian kami ramah gambut.
We do not burn peatland anymore, but we develop environmentally friendly farming practices.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Sukamtono, 49 tahun, kader sekolah lapang PRG Republik Indonesia, Desa Rawabangun, Kabupaten Indragiri Hulu, Provinsi Riau, Indonesia.
My name is Sukamtono. I come from Rawabangun village in Indragiri Hulu Regency. It's located in Riau Province in Indonesia. And I'm the field school champions from the program that from BRT RE. Next, Pak.
Selanjutnya tahun 1997 saya ikut program transmigrasi ke Rawabangun dengan komoditi utama pangan dan palawija.
In 1997, I participated in transmigration program. Currently, I live in my family in Java, and we moved to Riau province and started to cultivate the peatland over there and plant some food crops like the corns and rice and etc.
Mulai tahun 2000 sampai 2001 tergoda mengubah tanaman utama menjadi tanaman sawit, tanaman pangan, dan palawija jadikan sebagai hasil sampingan.
During 2000 and 2001, I started to be tempted to convert the food crops into oil palm plantations, and then only cultivating the lands for the food crops as the side income generation.
Pada saat sawit yang ditanam mulai berubah, ternyata hasil yang diperoleh tidak sesuai harapan dan diperparah oleh banjir tahunan yang merusak tanaman.
When the oil palm started to change the condition of the lands that we manage, then it started to experience flooding, and then also the price went down at the time of being, and then so the productivity of the palm oil started to also decrease.
Setelah 10 tahun berjalan, mulai disadari hasil tanaman pangan dan palawija yang hanya sebagai sampingan lebih pasti dan menjanjikan.
After 10 years, then I realized that the food crops is also one of the source of the income generations that can ensure the subsistence needs for my family.
Kembali ke tanaman pangan lagi, tahun 2010-2011 memutuskan menebang 1,5 hektar tanaman sawit dan mengganti dengan tanaman jagung.
During 2010 and 2011, I decided to convert the oil palm plantations and then to convert it to food crops to supply the daily sustenance for my family. Next, Pak.
Langkah ini diikuti oleh anggota kelompok tani sumber rezeki lainnya hingga saat ini lebih 35 hektar sawit ditebang dan kembali ke tanaman pangan atau jagung dan palawija.
And these initiatives were also followed up with other farmers. It's converting the oil palm plantations into food crops. That's also practicing the adaptive farming practices.
Setelah itu saya sekolah lapang petani gambut.
Then I participated in the field school programs that's initiated by Peat Research Agency.
Membangun komunitas petani gambut yang mandiri dan bertanggung jawab, akumulasi pengetahuan para petani.
In this program, we learn to improve our knowledge in terms of the peat management at the local levels, and also using some adaptive farming practices that can help us to improve the agriculture production.
Inovasi pembenahan tanah dan pupuk hayati yang digunakan dalam pertanian tanpa bakar seluruhnya berasal dari para petani dengan dukungan aktivitas agroekologi.
And in this program, we also learned the innovation of soil management, and as well as the organic fertilizer applications using the zero burning practices. And also, we were also learn and exchange knowledge from the other agroecological approach and methods that we practice in our farming land.
Dimplot sebagai laboratorium petani.
This is, as you can see in these pictures, are the mini demonstration pilots that we converted to food crops. In this picture is corn plantation, and then we harvest it every year, like twice every year.
Pengetahuan dari sekolah lapang diaplikasikan di lahan secara mandiri.
The knowledge that we get from the field school programs, we apply it ourselves, and then started to also replicate to the other pit farmers as well.
Selanjutnya, Dimplot sebagai laboratorium petani. Mencoba gagal, mencoba dan akhirnya menemukan metode yang sesuai dengan kondisi lahan gambutnya.
So after we tried several methods and then failed, and then we keep trying and using also the zero burning method practices and organic fertilizer applications, then we started to find the right formula to do the adaptive farming in the peatland ecosystem.
Dan saya melaksanakan ini tidak sendiri.
And I'm not alone in these initiatives. Next, Pak.
Ada 524 kader sekolah lapang yang tersebar di 262 desa peduli gambut.
There are over like 500 pit farmers that also participated in the field school programs, distributed widely in more than 200 villages.
Di desa kami dekat dengan perusahaan sekitar jarak 500 meter. Dan sudah ada bantuan dari perusahaan untuk perbaikan jalan dan masjid atau sarana ibadah.
For you all to know that my village is located close to the concession areas of the private companies. Throughout the years, we receive some assistance from the private companies in terms of the construction of social facilities and an improvement of the road qualities, and as well as other corporate social responsibility activities.
Dan harapan kami ke depan, kerjasama dengan perusahaan bisa ditingkatkan tidak hanya di bidang sosial dan sarana prasarana, tetapi juga bantuan untuk pembangunan ekonomi.
And it is my hope in the future that further cooperations with the private companies and organizations will also strengthen the local economic empowerment of pit farmers, and not only assisting on the part of the corporate social responsibility programs.
Sekian, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum
Thank you
warahmatullahi
all, and
wabarakatuh.
this is the end of my presentation.
Terima kasih Pak Sukamtono. Thank you very much Pak Sukamtono. And now I go back to Ibu Felia Salim, the Executive Board of Kemitraan.
Okay. Apologies. Oops, sorry. Apologies. We got the old file, which was somewhat too long, and I would have lost an audience then. So I'll try to make it brief. Okay. I'd like to take it to a somewhat different angle. So the objective of this presentation, it's seeking a partnership model really to address climate change, deforestation, declining agricultural productivity, biodiversity risk, and the need to ensure meeting social interests and economic livelihood. That's a mouthful. But really, we would like to put an additional angle, which is the finance angle. But to arrive at that, let me go through the process with you. This is just us briefly, Kemitraan Strategy. It's a multi-stakeholder approach. We work with governments, with NGOs, with organizations, with the academia. We've been established for 20 years already, and basically it's a multi-stakeholder partnership. So the context. We work at national level, at level, as well as at the village level. So we need to look at our external environment. I wanted to spend a bit of time on the human development because we have extreme pressures on job creation and also demographic pressure. The infrastructure development has been a focus, and of course this has impact and repercussions on the environment. And the focus today is moving away from commodities, mind you, to other industries. So we'll have to be aware that there's a significant shift of focus in the next 5 years. I'd like to also mention here that the moratorium is still in place, and we must continue to keep our eyes on it and ensure conservation efforts in place, as well as social and livelihood priorities. The cost of restoration, rehabilitation, adaptation is very high, obviously, and government budgets are insufficient. And we're, of course, faced with challenges for funding. It is always an ongoing thing that we face, from donors' risk aversion to bureaucratic inertia, right? And so I'm just being plain honest with you about it. There are lots of wonderful examples, but can we take it to scale? And are we running? I sense that we're running against time because the deforestation continues to happen around us. And as you can see with the forest fires, I think there's already a significant shift. I think we are already at a different space, going forward. So far there's still limited private sector engagement, included limited financial sector engagement. Now, obviously this sector is very important. I think you've heard these numbers already, that the government cannot tackle the challenge alone. This partnership is a must. Investment per year required to rehabilitate Indonesian forests, the number is quite staggering. And initial costs, just to look at 2 million hectares of Indonesian peatland areas. So these are numbers still quite relevant today. What are the driving forces? Now, so I'd like to take you a little bit on a macro perspective. We need to understand our demographic reality today. Indonesia today is at its peak on the average of the 30 years of age of the population and facing consumption and demand growth. There's extreme pressure. Also extreme pressure for job creation, smallholder participation, if you like. So, and then the challenge to quality of life. So this is another space. So I'd like for you to, move back a little bit, and what are the other sectors for developing? Health issue, obviously. The haze pollutant standards index hitting alarming level in certain provinces, we know that. And this is a continuous challenge. We have to always keep a check on it. And climate change, this is already here. extreme temperatures are observed, sea level rising, Pantura along northern coast of Java, extinction of biodiverse flora and fauna. I mean, I'm only stating the obvious. You've been able to observe this. Now, obviously, we are now, everybody's in this COP25, and for the last few COPs, is effective land use. We've been working on this seriously in search for better agricultural practices, better farming practices. We had a fantastic example just now. Luar biasa, Pak. Seeking improved productivity per square land, obviously. So this is key. So there is a growing importance for cross-sectoral linkages. We need to keep an eye on this. So we cannot just work alone, but cross-sectoral linkages. There are, in fact, direct and indirect pressures from the need for food safety and security, energy efficiency, obviously, right? And at COP, I don't hear enough about sustainable energy and the land use for food and energy. These are also happening at the same time and growing in importance. But let's look at it that these are new business opportunities and pressure of alternative and innovative financing. This is where the financial sector needs to enter. The potential barriers to sustainable development in Indonesia. I'm not going to go point by point, but essentially, the cost of replacement is still quite significant. So conservation of food and energy system change, as well as the impact on the need to change large businesses and operating models of existing businesses. We cannot do the way we have been working. There has to be a change in the way we work. This affects not only the business sector, but definitely the financial sector, which is still in its, I would say, conventional mode. The conventional mode. It hasn't really hit home, but there are now models developing in this area, right? So financing of smaller projects often done through recourse, corporate financing, and just small but not yet impact. So we're looking at, of course, that the government budget to support is not sufficient. So there's limited space to use fiscal tools in the short term. So basically, the financial sector has to be drawn into the whole space. There's a whole theory of change. The whole discussion of the financial sector hasn't taken place in the COP discussion. So I'd like to draw this attention to you. The theory of change here, it's filling the gap against access to land, capital, technology, and market. Addressing social interest, community engagement in economic livelihood activities. I've been a banker for 30 years. I've never heard these discussions take place in my credit analysis. This has never been, it was kind of like more ticking in the box in the last half page of a credit analysis. So I'm glad that there's a realization. So we need to have capability enhancement for economic players and businesses to incorporate the whole discussion about landscape protection plan, biodiversity protection plan. This is all new to the financial sector. And of course, the whole discussion about NDPE commitment, right? So these are many, many aspects that is so alien to the financial sector. Therefore, through strategic partnership, we address the theory of change towards sustainable development goals. We're looking at jointly together, forging strategic partnerships for impact. The mutual benefits of public, private, and people partnership. So it's not only TA work, if you like. Fantastic. It was groundbreaking work. But until you bring that into the mainstream, which the financial sector can help bring all these efforts into the mainstream, then only it's a real change in the whole economic space, which include the financial sector, that can actually help drive change, right? Private sectors working with communities, incorporating the whole, not only well-meaning social responsibility, but actually putting it systemically in place, right? Now, this is one example that Kemitraan had been engaged, and it's a very beautiful project. It's more of a public-private people partnership in integrated sustainable landscape management. It took about a good couple of years with a lot of hand-holding, community engagement, and all the discussion to create good practices in sustainable landscape management and to develop cooperation schemes between companies and parties in the prevention of forest fires and primate habitat conservation. The project is in West Kalimantan. So it's like a very intensive multi-sector engagement. So the main results, there was a lot of multi-stakeholder dialogue. There's biodiversity conservation planning developed in collaboration amongst communities, reduce forest fires in surrounding concessions. And, you know, I don't need to go to the list, but this has been a relatively wonderful 2-year project that, because of multi-stakeholder engagement, there's a declining risk of tenure conflicts in local communities. So this has been a very positive results. Now, these are some of the very intensive management training with communities, local nurseries. There's so many, it's multifaceted program. Now, what is the, let me jump to the market expectations for access to finance. I think finance is a driving force. Previous is more TA engagement, more grants funding, more hand-holding, it's community engagement, pulling people together, pulling resources together. But how do we bring that to become sustainable? We need to get up the finance sector into the market. So how do we take that step by step, right? We cannot use conventional mode. There's a fundamental theory of change that needs to take place, right? So a real deep understanding of the proposed transition and market potential, working with governments and development funds to absorb transition costs. These are the initial transition costs of the theory of change, moving it from A to B. Quite a significant shift. And the financial sector should hope for a system review to better understand the overall cost. Everything has a cost. Understanding the risks mitigation. This is crucial for bankers and investors to be able to take the responsible decisions, because bankers and financial are managing other people's money for a return. So support for capability development for the banking sector. Obviously, the financial sector, the banking sector, the capital market has to be prepared for this whole new different lingua, different space altogether that's taking place. So I'm happy to announce that our Financial Services Authority came out with Regulation number 51 on sustainable finance. Starting on January 1st, 2020, all the banks have to have a plan on sustainable finance. It's not yet in place, but they all have to submit a plan within their business plan. And a lot of examples are now being tested with some of the significant banks to look at sustainability. So this is happening now. And of course, we have the BPDLH, new financing structure, who can also assist in all this transition based on that theory of change that I mentioned earlier. So But what is important here is that there should be a level playing field. You know, everybody should be in it for the ride. That's why I think this is the first time that the Financial Services Authority came out with actually a Regulation 51. Yeah? But it is now taking the steps. It is already a regulation. Before it was purely voluntary. I remember the past 5-10 years, it was all well-meaning, but never came out with any significant regulation. It was all purely voluntary. But you know how it is. It just keeps drag on and on and on. You know, enterprise, environmental social governance, environmental social management systems, that's already incorporated in many of the banks. Some of the global banks, for example, like HSBC, Rabobank, they have it incorporated, but it's not yet across all the financial sector. Oops, did I do something? Sorry. So basically, it's the first time that our OJK, the Financial Services Authority, issued this regulation. Let me forewarn, it's effective January 1st, 2020, but it is still hand-holding all the financial players, the banks. But at least we have that in place. I think we should all, you know, assist this sector to really push ahead, because I think finance is very key, because as you see, the government budget is not enough. Donor support, while helpful, is not meeting, not fast enough. It's not pushing for change fast enough, because I think we're racing against time. So a level playing field is important. Transparent processes obviously is important. Now, let me talk to you about blended finance. Right? You know, blended finance is also now a new thing. It's a strategic use of development finance for the mobilization of additional finance towards sustainable development goals. Now, this is a combination of developmental work with private funds, right? Private funds view developmental aspect as high risk, right? They have responsibility. It's not for lack of well-meaning bankers, but they have the responsibility of their investors, right? I mean, you put your money in deposits, and bankers have to manage your money well. That they look at the risk. Developmental projects are normally has very low returns in a very long time. So this is blended is a combination of development funds with private sector. Now, look at this snapshot. We have now, for example, Green Fund is a blended finance. It's a fairly new new endeavor. There's now popping up a few blended finance as well, here and there. But a lot of the uplifting, right, of the process is mix of using the long-term development funds to support with support of the commercial funds. So development funds are normally long-term, very low rates. And commercial funds are usually short-term, higher rates. So if you blend them, at the end of the day, it's a relatively lower rate. So basically, that's the whole logic to it. But, you know, the initial state, obviously, is higher risk, planning, feasibility, community engagement. Imagine you have these bankers doing community engagement. This is a completely different sphere. But this is now changing, right? So this landscape protection plan, for example, is absorbed by the development funds or government budget or TA facility to achieve the SDG standard. But this is a blended effort whereby well-meaning private funders put it in one pocket so that overall it will be a much cheaper rate. Yeah? So the return is not only return on investment. That's how bankers only see return on investment. But now they're learning to add return on investment, plus return on environment and biodiversity, plus return on social impact. This is a whole new, different, it's completely deconstructed the way we look at return. I hope this is a whole new world for the banking financial sector. But, and now, blended finance initiatives are popping up, in different places. And green is one of them. I'm happy to be engaged in that. So, the social impact, of course, for example, smallholder participation, better farming practices, all the things that we talk about all throughout the COP25. How to engage in better sustainable landscape use, better farming practices, and how much can positively impact. Also, of course, impact on health. So this is a blend of developmental work with private funds. Yeah? And as you know, impact investors, it's huge. You know why this is happening everywhere in the world? And there's an exponential growth of impact investors, much faster than blended finance. You know why? Because actually, if I may say, there's second generation wealth that has quite a significant amount of investment with nowhere to park, but has a different awareness. So impact investment is like, it's flying, it's very fast. But it just feel good impact investors without significant structural changes happening on the ground. But this is an opportunity. I see this as an opportunity, yeah? Once a few more blended finance initiative happens, maybe the impact investment can be better. So this is my last slide. And of course, the BPDA can also help push the impact investment, the blended finance, much faster. Thank you. And anyway, I don't need to read all this, but basically this is the time where we all, the private sector funds with development funds converge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibu Pelia. Now, without further ado, I'd like to invite Pak Arito now, the President Director of PT Riau Andalan Pulp and Paper.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to continue to pick up on this topic about conservation and the role of partnership within that. Let me first start with introducing April. We operate one of the largest pulp and paper manufacturing companies in Indonesia. We're based in Riau, and we manage around 1 million hectares of land concession from the government. And our products are used in daily lives. We produce materials for paper, for packaging, for any kind of consumer products that require paper. And then we are guided by our sustainable forest management policy, which was launched in 2015, at the same time that the world embraces the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, for us, we have been trying to measure our impact as a company. Yeah? We have a business philosophy. Everything that we do must be good for the community, for country, for climate, for customers, and only then will it be good for the company. Now, with the advent of Sustainable Development Goals, we are able to link our priorities with the global priorities, with the national priorities, and also with local priorities. However, as many of the business decisions, achieving 17 goals would be too much for any one single company. Yeah. So 2 years ago, we worked with UNDP and with PricewaterhouseCoopers to identify which among the 17 Sustainable Development Goals should become our priority goals. Yeah? And through some rigorous process and research, we identified 3 goals as our core goals, yeah? Goals 12, 13, and 15, and then 4 other goals where we can play catalytic role. Now, the context here is that for us, sustainable development goals will be incorporated into our daily business operation. So it's not going to be a project where we target specific SDGs, but it is really becoming part of our day-to-day operations. Yeah? That is why April, being a forestry-based company, for us, goal 12, goal 13, and 15 are very relevant. Now, one example of several programs that we have in our business operation that can achieve sustainable development goals is the Restorasi Ecosystem Riau, or Riau Ecosystem Restoration. Yeah? It's a private sector initiative. We received license from the government for 60 years, and we manage an area of 150,000 hectares, yeah? The size of London, or more than double the size of Madrid, yeah, the place where we are now. And well, we are fortunate because the shareholders are committed by providing $100 billion US dollars of funding to support this ecosystem restoration that will finance the operation until 2025 for 10 years. Yeah? Now, to give all of you an illustration of what I was referring to as Riau ecosystem restoration, I'd like to draw your attention to a short video, a 2-minute video about the Restorasi Ecosystem Riau. And I'm very pleased to see some of the audience are now wearing the tanjak, yeah? And you know, I will be wearing my tanjak too. This is a traditional head cover from Riau. Let's watch the video.
The Kampar Peninsula, Sumatra. One of the largest intact peat forests in Southeast Asia. This is a critical ecosystem that breathes life and water into the surrounding landscape. But in the 21st century, nature needs help to survive.
Our biggest threats are illegal logging, unwanted land claims or encroachment, and if that happens, then fire.
That's where Restorasi Ecosystem Riau comes in. A dedicated team of rangers, scientists, and forest managers. Their mission: restore 150,000 hectares of degraded peatland, an area the size of London, and protect the forest from misuse.
Jangan sampai ada kebakaran. Paling penting di area kita adalah jangan sampai ada api. Setiap hari sampai habis, bagaimana besok?
The rangers of RER work in partnership with the fishermen and community that call this home.
Oh, much. Much.
Hantam buaya itu. Panggil buaya ini menghantam pilar di seberang.
Smart. Very smart.
And slowly, the forest is revealing its secrets.
You look at this is a claw mark of sun bear. It's triangular shape. Perhaps this bear is trying to get into the fruit.
Rare and endangered species adapted to this remarkable world. Restorasi Ecosystem Riau is a high-stakes commitment to save a forest.
If we weren't here, this place would be under attack. It would be degrading fast. But because we're here,
Hey! Ranger.
it's not.
This is Frontier Sumatra.
Allow me to continue with my presentation. As you can see, our Riau ecosystem restoration is a good example of how business operations can contribute to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. but it is also a good example of how many parties can collaborate, yeah, to achieve sustainable development goals. Yeah. Now, in our restoration ecosystem Riau, we protect the environment, we assess the quality of the environment, including assessing the biodiversity, and we restore degraded parts of the peatland area in the conservation area, and we manage our relationship with the community surrounding. Yeah. Partnership is key, yeah, because we partner with local community also. We partner with the local big SDA in Riau, yeah, and through this partnership, we can achieve a lot. For instance, at the moment, our Riau ecosystem restoration contributes to meeting our one-to-one commitment. Yeah, as part of our sustainable forest management policy, which we launched in 2015, we commit to conserve or restore 1 hectare of land for every hectare of land that we use for industrial forests. Yeah, we have four years since we launched the commitment. Yeah, and we have achieved 80% meeting the commitment. We still have 1 year to really achieve the 100% meeting the commitment. And to date, we have restored around 150,000 of degraded peatland. Okay. In terms of biodiversity, we, together with Fauna and Flora International in 2015, we did a baseline survey. Yeah? So the data now accumulates every year. Every year we monitor the existence of biodiversity in our Riau ecosystem restoration, and to date, until the end of 2018, we have identified 759 species of fauna and flora within the 150,000 hectares of Riau ecosystem restoration. Yeah. Now, behind the effective management of our Riau ecosystem restoration is what we call production protection landscape approach. Yeah. I would like to draw your attention to this chart here. Okay, the light green area in the middle represents our Riau ecosystem restoration area. This is the area that we conserve. Yeah, but the yellow one, the yellow colored area here represents our industrial forests. Yeah. Now, by combining protection and production, we are able to protect more effectively the restoration area, the conservation and restoration area, because it is the industrial forest that runs the commercial operations, yeah, and the commercial operations would be the one who can afford to pay for the patrol, to pay for fire prevention, to pay for programs with communities. Yeah? So we believe for that effective conservation and restoration would require a combination of production and protection. Now, partnership with community continue to be at the core aspect of our business operations. Yeah, so we believe that effective conservation should not leave out the surrounding community. Yeah, the surrounding community should also benefit economically from the conservation and restoration area. So that is why, as part of our management approach, is to work with the community to improve their livelihood. Yeah. Now, this reflects that partnership is key in conservation and restoration. And number two, our Riau ecosystem restoration is a good reflection of also of our business policy. Yeah. Business policy and business philosophy, which is everything that we do should be good for community, should be good for government, for the country, should be good for customers, good for the climate, and only then will it be good for the company. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Silva Laritona. And with your permission, I move to my last speaker this afternoon, Pak Supiandi, representing Peat Society of Indonesia.
Thank you, Pak Emansa. Ladies and gentlemen, very good afternoon, maybe nearly evening. Yeah. To me, it's very difficult to talk because now I'm is the last for the last. But anyhow, I hope you still with us, together with us to discuss what the problem in the peatland. Yes, I'm from Peatland Society of Indonesia. Want to share our experience regarding the peatlands management in line with the no fire farming and water management. Next. This is outline. I think 5 points I will to talk. Yeah. And the first I would like to introduce first AGEI. AGEI is mean Peace Society of Indonesia Research Initiative in line with the program of reducing the fires. So we have so many programs, but from the programs, 2 kinds of programs related to peat fires and emission. And from these programs, we design the activities to meet how to mix balance between production, social and environment. So this is our mission to manage the peat. Yeah. Regarding the fires, I think from 8,000 years ago, it's already existed in fire in the peatland. This is based on our result according to the paleontological studies, and this research is already published in Paleo journal. So I think we conclude that even 8,000 years ago is already fires, but at that time still very low, and then increased by the increasing of human activities until the modern and this is even in modern. So people still continue. When I was here in 1970, people still, burns the land for land preparation. Yeah. And after that, they mix the simple canal, look like single stand canal. Yeah. But this is very good condition at the times because people didn't touch the canal until the forest and all the peatland, deep peatland. So this is preparing for land using the fire at when I was there in 1970. So by this experience, so my question is, can this simple preparation be stopped? Yeah. Because this is still like custom, like culture for the people. But of course, the answer is must be stopped because this is look like very dangerous for the wildfires. Yeah. Because our research result regarding to the peat fires, factor affecting the wildfires is at least 3 kinds of factors. First, of source of fire. Based on our research result, at that time, source of fire is related to the people activities, not from physical properties. Yeah. So, the second is vegetation above its surface that become dry, especially during the dry season. And the third is law enforcement. Law enforcement is fire protection seems to be not priority at the time. So now we have to go to that protection rather than suppression. Yeah. So how to solve the problem? I think this is very good experience done by IPP. I thank you very much for use this map. So first is managing water using topographic map as the basic for management of peat, but using LiDAR. And from here, the result of, the target of the mapping is topographic map. Yeah. And by IPP, already at least 4.5 million hectares already mapped by in this 8 Sumatra. So from this mapping, we can understand that there are so many dome pits and also the lowest pit. So at that time, we can design how to make the canal system in that area. Yeah. And then after that, we can introduce about the functional zoning. When here is we can see we have a zone pit dome in which is water reservoir at the source of water and can distribute to the lower area in concession area. But the important thing is distribute to the livelihood crop area done by local people, because in local people area is the sometimes source of the fire to become the wildfire. So at this figure, we can see that the important thing is how to manage pit above groundwater level should be in moist condition, not always in certain level of groundwater level, but the important thing also the moist condition above the pit above the groundwater level. We can see here why it is very important, because even this is groundwater level, this is above the groundwater level, that's still very moist. Yeah. This is enough for to support the plant growth. Yeah. So this is during the rainy season. During rainy season here, but here is during rainy season. So still moist. Yeah. And the water content is about more than 300%. So meaning that it is still a very high water content in the pit above the groundwater level. So this is enough to support from plant growth. Yeah. And so what have to do for that? So zero burning in peatland, of course, is the best alternative. Yeah, for reducing the fires. But my idea is the consequences is that government and company should be responsible to have and could control community during preparing the land. I think this is very important. Otherwise, people still, burn the land. Yeah. And the other one is government and company should also concern to sell water, especially during dry season for agriculture activities done by local people. Yeah. So this is the consequences should be done, yeah, must be done, yeah, for all. Now already I know some company already done, like Sinarmas and also Apri Group already done, but it is maybe not only that those company, but also for all company that cultivate the land, peatland in the region. So my conclusion remark like this. So we have to look for how the relationship between management target and activities that should be done. Management target is good production and no fire, and activities that should be done, develop functional zoning, develop harmony of economic, social, and environment, and develop collaborative action of CBG is mean community, business, and government. So from this relationship, we can do for every activities. For example, good production and develop functional zoning, we have to maintain groundwater level, not only groundwater level, but also peat moisture content. Yeah. And develop functional zoning and no fire, so increasing peat moisture for protecting fire. So we have to increase moisture content, not only groundwater level. So meaning that we have to manage not only groundwater level, but also peat properties, especially physical properties. And how about the develop harmony of economy, social, and environment, and good production? So we have to mix balanced approach to ensuring production and food security. And with no fire, sharing water for reducing hotspot and emission. Hotspot is different with hot fire. In the morning, this some presenter said that titik api. Titik api is not related to the hot fire, hot spot. And the other one is develop collaborative action. It is collaborative between community, business, and government, and good production, increasing the people capability in managing production. So this is very important to mix collaborative between three parties to increase the capability of the local people. And the last one is to increase the waste management practice for fire-free villages, for increasing the protection fire through fire-free villages. In these activities already done by several companies, especially, like I said, April and also Sinarmas Group. Then I think also some company, but not still not all. Yeah, this is still to increase the this effort for other companies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pak Supiandi. It is interesting to note that to prevent fire, you need to focus not only on water level, but to ensure that the peat is re-wet. I mean, the peat properties also should be wet. The peat properties itself is very important. It's not just the water level. By the way, to sum up, we got 3 speakers has been spoken about fire, about peat, about policy, about practice in the agriculture relating to peat, and then 2 of my speakers talking about partnership. One is from the angle of finance, including blended finance, and the other one, partnership on the ground in the showcase of restoration of ecosystem. Any questions? We are towards the end. Any suggestions? Any remarks? Pak Nur, can I invite you? I have not heard anything from you today. So, anything? Any of our friends, brother and sister from outside Asia? Africa, please. Latin America, welcome. Nothing? Well, since everything is settled, okay, yeah, Pak Nur.
Yes, I have a simple question on behalf of the audience from the other countries.
Okay.
What can Indonesia share with other countries in this peatland endeavor? Please.
Any of our story
Yes.
here is of global nature to be shared with other continents? Who can answer this? Bu Mirna first. Ada yang bisa di-share dengan Afrika dan Latin Amerika?
2 years ago, I met with the Minister of Environment of Congo, and seems that we have similar problems related to how to deal with the indigenous and local communities to ask them to be involved in protecting the peatland. And the minister at the time was very excited to hear our story, and then saying that seems that Congo can also learn from Indonesia how government can work together with the local communities for protecting the peatland. So I think that what already discussed in this panel, it's also applicable to other developing countries.
Pak Supiandi, what do you think? Do you think anything to emphasize for other region?
Yeah, I think still peat is still difference between region to regions, even place to the place. So I think collaborative research should be developed with other country. And I know that, for example, temperate region and also tropical region is very different condition of peat. So I think this should be what shares experience from the temperate region and the tropical region. Even between tropical region and the other tropical regions, for example, tropical country and the tropical country, like Indonesia and Brazil, for example, and I was there, it's very, very different condition of peat. So I think this should be, we have to make
into account,
a discussion and how to manage peat with different conditions. I think this is, my point is how to make collaboration for the developing the peat in the world.
Can we turn to the partnership? Is there anything to offer to other region? Do you think Bu Felia, do you think this similar scheme can be promoted over there?
I think obviously the approach can be the same. It definitely has to be multi-stakeholder. That's a multi-stakeholder approach is important. But of course, different climates is completely different. Contour, and obviously Brazil and Indonesia, unless it's closer to the equator, we probably have similarities, right? But in Brazil, I think it's further to the south. So I would imagine measures are different. But obviously, it has to be a multi-stakeholder engagement. Yeah.
And finance is still.
And the finance is still lagging behind. That's why a lot of the developmental funds is important as a way to introduce into the financial sector. I mentioned earlier the blended finance part. The financial sector have actually very little understanding of the whole palm oil industry in terms of technicality. Yeah, so while the financial sector is really financing a lot of the palm oil sector, but it's really at the level of commercialization. And what's happening a lot is in the developmental stage. So it's different, it differs country to country. But essentially the framework should be the same.
Okay, framework should be the same or similar. Pak Sihol, what do you think? I don't know what you are going to say, but I'd like you to touch upon the community livelihood that you are talking to be addressed in the framework of partnership. Can you say more about that?
Yes. First of all, learning from our experience in managing ecosystem restoration, first, one thing is that the issuance of ER license, Restorasi Ecosystem Permit by the government, is a true indicator of innovation led by government. So the Ministry of Forestry and Environment is in the best position to introduce more innovation like the ecosystem restoration. That is one. Number two, it is possible for companies to collaborate with other stakeholders to achieve sustainable development goals, yeah, including the improvement of livelihood of the communities surrounding our ecosystem restoration area, yeah, and it will require investment in terms of training, engagement with the community, and it is not always easy, but it requires patience and investment in time. Number three, very key in the process of collaboration. Well, collaboration is easy to say, but it's not always easy to implement. Yeah, so it is upon the company to continue to invest the time, to invest the resources, to make sure that the collaboration will eventually work. Yeah, and at the same time also, we will need to be rigorous in complying with whatever regulations, yeah, that would help all of us, all of the stakeholders, prevent or protect the peatland. Yeah, so that's all. Thank you.
Terima kasih. So my last question is to Pak Sukamtono. Pak Sukamtono, gimana nih tadi kan membakar tanpa bertani tanpa membakar, ongkosnya jadi lebih gede nggak ini? I'm asking if this zero burning will have an implication on cost compared to the conventional one, please. Jadi tambah mahal atau enggak?
Lebih mahal. Masalahnya apa itu? Pakai racun semprot untuk nyemprot dulu, baru di traktor, nah itu baru bisa ditanam.
Berapa berapa kali lebih mahal? 2 kali, 3 kali dibanding cara biasa?
3 kali.
3 kali lebih mahal. So I think we need to take this up into consideration, yeah, in terms of return and cost implication. Well, but if you have to mitigate fire, then how much you have to pay? So there should be a fair comparison to that. But anyway, I found it's inspirative. It's a revealing response and answer. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. You have an announcement to make, or I will just pass it by to. Thank you very much. Oh, our African brother. You speak in French or in English?
French. I'm country. I don't know if I can speak French or English. I don't know.
Okay.
You can go in French or English. I will try with English also.
Yeah, English is better. Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Kofi Vole from Togo.
Oh, Togo.
We are working also in environmental aspect, the Ministry of Environment. We have many programs also to Peatland, to protect also forest, and the presentation that we have done here, I learned many things on it that we can use to align our action on the ground in Togo. I have 2 questions to Madame regarding the partnership that you put all together in the same package. Same package. If I don't, that's the partnership between government and private sector. I would like to know how the private sector can can achieve profits, can have the profits, and invest it with the government. No? The second question is now for the land protection. Now we know that as you said, land, forest is used in our country for agriculture, used for living, living stock. Also, forest is used also for wood fire and so on. Now, to protect the land, the forest, as very difficult. It's very difficult also in our country regarding the benefits and the profit that community take from the forest and the ground. Now, to know really what activity you have created for the community to not to avoid deforestation. How can you involve community in the protection of the land? What activity that they do to protect the land, and also what is strategy that we can plan if, as the population is grown, they will a need of land, they are need for forest. I don't know if you have some picture for projection when the population is growing.
What
Thank you.
I got is pressures mounting, and then in terms of finance, what is make them interest? I mean, the financial sector as well, the private sector to do this. Why they want to do this? Why they want to pick up that kind of partnership? Do you have any idea in mind, Bu Lia?
Well, the financial sector, the banking sector is only taking up the commercial aspect from the long value chain that needs to take place. There's a lot of developmental stage that needs to take place before commercialization. And usually, conventional financial sector only takes, when it's ripe, when it's just going to market, and it is not within their criteria to look at how we arrive there. And as we know, there are a lot of problems until it hits the market. So markets have changing, consumers are changing, so there is pressure for the financial sector to be socially responsible and also not only social but environmentally sustainable. So there is that realm. So there are market pressures as well that is taking place. As you know, the European market has been very, very critical of certain practices in different markets, in different industries. So markets are shrinking for palm oil, for example, right? For better or for worse, this is happening. There is a transition that is required. So the banking community, the financial sector is now aligning with the demand pressures from the consumers. The young consumers are now wanting to look at, they look at a product, they look at the traceability. How is this being produced? Right? So there's a changing consumer consciousness, and the financial sector is now aligning with that.
Okay.
That's basically it.
Well, we have 2 hours to go until 8 o'clock, but I think it was just kidding. I think I should conclude by thanking you all for being here and for your indulgence. So we would like to give a big and warm applause to our speakers today, which enrich our values as well our knowledge. And we hope to see you again tomorrow on time by 9, but I give it back to the protocol, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Efransha, for being with us for some session today. And before we are concluding the session, there is a token of appreciation from the Minister of Environment and Forestry. And I would like to invite from Ms. Mirna to hand out for the other speakers. From Ms. Mirna from Peatland Agency to give it out to all. And we will take a photo session afterwards. And there is also a gift. So to Mr. Efransha, please hand out to all of the speakers. And now we are going to take a photo session, so please move forward. Okay, thank you very much for all the guests.